So welcome to episode 4 of Roll Talk. So today we've got David Pagotto. Is that right? Have I got that right?
That is correct. That is correct.
Founder of Sixgun in Melbourne. So we've been back and forth for a couple of months now. Really interesting chat. So I really wanted to get you on. And what I wanted to do was kind of talk to you about ultimately how Sixgun was born and how that came about and your early career. But then a bit more than that, I want to look at the Australian market as well. I've been doing a lot in the Australian market, and I feel like it's a market that I would say is ahead of the UK now when it comes to opportunities, I think, from a recruitment perspective. But it'd be good to hear it from your side of the fence, obviously, as a business owner in the thick of it. But yeah, let's start with the early career. So how did you get into SEO?
Well, I always loved the the digital marketing aspects of web. So, I tinkered around with web stuff and I tinkered around with marketing stuff and all the usual pathways, affiliate marketing and all these kind of things while I was in high school, tinkering around, all of that. And throughout all of that and a few bits and bobs along the way, I ended up at a few different agencies in Melbourne. And that's really where I started to kind of learn the mechanics of it in a very kind of, I guess you could say, commercial and professional way. And from there, I had the desire to kind of step out on my own and build my own business.
Fair play. So was there a moment, were you operating as a consultant at one point and then the work grew, or did you just decide one day, you know what, I'm going to build the work and then from there it will be an agency?
Yeah. So, I've been entrepreneurial from a super young age. I won't go into all of that fun, but I knew, that I was going to be in the world of business for a long time and how, I didn't quite know where I would end up in terms of bits and pieces and all the rest of it. But, I started working at these agencies and, my first step was to go become a freelancer, take on some of my own clients and do that kind of thing. And I'm so grateful for the time that I spent in the agencies that I did, because I learned so much. And I think it's just such an invaluable thing to be in amongst it, and great people and great process and all that kind of stuff. So I jumped into freelance life, started kind of building up clients and the rest of it that come along. And, at that time, I always thought, yeah, look, I'm keen to kind of go a bit beyond myself, build that agency. And you would know this yourself, that, going from going from freelance to your first full-time hire is a massive mental thing to do, because, you go from making, let's say, a salary's worth of money yourself as a freelancer to, okay, I need to pay someone to come in. And that dynamic of the first few hires is always very, very interesting one. So I went through all of that process, and it was very fun. Enthusiasm, goes a long way when you're getting started. And I think that's important for people getting started in business to capture. And it all kind of went from there.
Fair play. Were there any mistakes made along the way? So like with your early hires, how did they go?
There were so many mistakes. I don't even know where to begin.
No, yeah, I'd love to hear it though, because I think it's good. That's what I love to talk about, because it's the warts and all stuff, because nobody gets it right every time. But you see so much on LinkedIn, you see the polished stuff, don't you? You see people talking how they're winning. And we know they're not the whole time.
Look, I think anyone that's built a successful business of any kind, I have massive respect for. And the longer I do this and the more businesses I meet and the more owners that I meet and the challenges that come at people, particularly within the world that we're in at the moment, massive respect for anyone that's stood up a business. And there's so many mistakes. I don't even know where to really begin in terms of how to begin kind of going through it. But it's one of those things. If I was to start again tomorrow, like with nothing, like where I started at the beginning, I'd be able to reach the same point 5 times as quick, 10 times as quick than I did then. Because of the mistakes with, I think a big thing for me was the lack of our own marketing for ourselves, doing that much later and kind of building the brand to be something a bit stronger and kind of putting the detail into that. Who to hire, how to know who to hire, at the start, you're really giving it a go. I was a technician, I was an SEO guy. I knew how to do SEO. I didn't really know how to build a business. Well, I'm still learning that, of course. But, I think that's how everyone starts, right? They're great at the craft. Yeah. And they're good at, what they're selling. And then they have to learn how to sell, and they have to learn how to manage, and they have to learn how to hire, and they have to learn how to grow. And the mentality that's needed at every step is vastly different from what it was before. My mentality when it was me and I was hiring my first person is not the same as it is today, nor should it be. And there's a bit of mental growth and personal growth that comes along with that journey. And I think having a business is, it's almost a bit like parenting. You're a new to the world of parenting, just like me, where it's, it comes with a lot of challenge, but it comes with a lot of magic and a lot of, it's just, it stretches you in so many ways, but it's so awesome. Like, it stretches you in all the right ways that life has in store for all of us.
I hear you. So if there was a profile of person right now, or let's say if there was an embodiment or values that you look for in a person, what would that look like? If you were hiring for Sixgun right now, you're going out there, you're looking for your SEO, your paid media. What are the values beyond the channel specific skills that you think are specific to your values and the way that you work? And maybe you found that along the way.
I think there's a few things that we look at when it comes to values and culture and fit. Super hard, because just like a first date, everyone's on their best behavior. Yeah, everyone's, so you kind of have to kind of step through that and kind of make that assessment as well. I mean, people that fit in well at Sixgun are probably have a little bit more of a mature mindset to work. And by that, I mean, they might have gone through a few challenges in the past with other workplaces. They've got a sense of what they want, and that kind of aligns with what we've got. So I think like someone that's a little bit more mature in the way that they think, and we've had people that have that mindset, like in their first or second role they've ever had, come and join Sixgun. So it's not about age, it's just kind of way of thinking. And that probably dovetails into a lot of values that we value. So we talk about this idea of kind of hard work within the business, and hard work doesn't mean working 10 o'clock at night or any, that's not what we mean by hard work, but there's a sense of satisfaction from the quality of work we produce, how we, really kind of deliver an exceptional result for a client, and that kind of magic that comes with mastery, right? So now that's a little bit challenging to assess when you're looking at someone in terms of, are they the kind of person that always tries to do their best no matter what they do? Do they really have pride in their work? And do they really want to kind of fit into that kind of model? Because when you have a model like that, our team has high standards of the team. Like our account manager has a high standard, sets a high standard for our sales team to make sure that we're bringing in the right kind of business. Our account managers have high expectations, for example, of the tech team to deliver high quality work, as our clients should. So when you build a high performing workplace, you need high performers or else it's very obvious that they're not high performers, and that creates challenges, and it becomes very obvious very quickly when they're not there. So, when we talk about hard work, that's, that satisfaction, that enjoyment of the mastery, that someone that kind of embodies that's very important kind of aspect. Another thing that's really important to us is, just like the honesty and integrity piece. So, we're not interested in bringing people on that are, quick to blame others or not own mistakes. We're the kind of business where, mistakes happen in digital, as in we might be delivering, a client piece of work, and there's some kind of mistake that's been made. And if it's our mistake, we quickly own it, put a process in place so it doesn't happen again, and move forward. And that's what, I think life's about, right? It's not about, obviously we try not to make any mistakes in what we do. Yeah. That's the ambition. And, with the processes and systems that continually build in any business, that's what happens. But, having this kind of idea of, integrity, and having this kind of, again, it's kind of like a more mature way of thinking. the necessarily like young, fast, hungry style, which some agencies have that style. We're probably a little bit more kind of on the other end, where we want that, you know, ownership and, you know, that kind of the idea of, you know, affecting the core of something, not just like the flashy, glossy side of it. Like, we're a technical agency. We deliver technical results. You know, we don't talk about like impressions, and like we talk about revenue, conversions, like the things that make your business run. And so you kind of have to strip away some of the glossiness that comes in marketing to get to that. And I think that maturity in that, those things that I mentioned in terms of values just dovetail into the people that we look for in terms of what is a good cultural fit for Sixgun talent-wise.
Yeah, fair play. So it sounds like accountability and commercial acumen are big, which makes complete sense. And you said something there, and I think you're right. There are a lot of agencies that they're not really as fussed about when they're hiring. So like, they're interested in, and the best way of putting it, you get some agencies, they set up almost like production line style services where you've got a lot of junior individuals. They're not necessarily given exposure to commercials. They're not given exposure to client account management, solid client services. It's just about just bang out the work, bang out the work, bang out the work. And then they'll have another layer dealing with. And I think what that then tends to breed is, and it's something I'm talking about all the time at the moment with a lot of people, is there's a sort of a, not all, and I think, but there's a big layer of the younger generation of marketers that just, they don't get the commercial side of things, and they're not ready for those client comms, yet they want that next step and they want the money and they want to, because it's not their fault. It's just kind of how they've, so I guess what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is you've done the opposite to that. You're bringing people in straight away that already have that commercial mindset, or you instill it in them, which I think is massive, because that's only going to have a positive impact on your service lines, right? So it makes complete sense. Have you had any challenges with that, where people have made all the right noises in the interview when it comes to commercials, et cetera, and then when push comes to shove?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. Like, we talk about it. I talk about it internally with the leadership team in terms of like when we're, you know, on the precipice of hiring people and when we're going through the interview process. And it's very, very difficult to, you know, you almost need, I mean, this is why probation periods exist in business, you know, globally, because it's almost impossible to separate, you know, what you hear in an interview and how to go through the process. And even kind of some of the, you know, let's say you could do like assessments and things like that, depending on the role. It's still difficult to really know how someone's going to be in the face of the whirlwind of an agency. You know, how they're going to handle all the pieces of it. And even though, you know, we try to, using words, explain exactly kind of what they're going to feel, and it's going to be busy, it's going to be this, and this is kind of what the day is going to look like. And, you know, lots of smiles and nods, and that sounds great. But then there has been instances where it hasn't worked out perfectly, for sure. And, you know, it's not a reflection on those people. It's just sometimes like, the fit at any one agency, it can just vary so much between someone's style. And so just recognizing that and being able to kind of try to step through that when needed. And, you know, it's always better to come to that decision earlier rather than later for everyone involved.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, an important aspect of it as well.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And it's very, very common, to be fair. I think pretty much every agency goes through it. At least every couple of years, there'll be a hire they'll be quite sure on, and then doesn't quite work out. It's funny because I do a lot of work with a business called NeuroWorks. This isn't a plug, by the way, but they do bespoke tasks and tests to test those kinds of things. So like accountability is a big one that they test for. Commercial acumen. To be honest, pretty much anything you want to test for. It could be that somebody might want somebody that's got like a specific niche skill within this one industry they work in, whatever it might be. But I think the huge benefit of a tool like that is firstly it's AI driven, so it's conversational, so it puts people on the hop. There's no time to sit there and research the answer, even if they're doing it online or whatever. It's kind of bang, like you're in it. So yeah, their clients that use, they find that kind of helps with that kind of thing, and the churn is down massively when it comes to the commercial side of things. But before that, it must have been impossible, really, because you get people that are very, very good interviewees. Sorry, you get people that are just very good at saying the right thing, I guess. And then you kind of, but yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing with it is, it's just like dating. It's a perfect example. You get into, you might be dating someone the first few months, even the first 6 months might go well. And then, there might be an attitude change. And, those kind of things, it's an impossible thing to measure every aspect of it prior. It's just the nature of, the world that we're in agency land.
Yeah, fair play. On another note, I've noticed you do a lot of pro bono work, right? Pro bono work. And
yeah, we do. I mean,
very cool.
Probably more what we call low bono.
Right. Okay.
Which is kind of like we do like discounted work, like in the charitable space. And it's like working with charities, particularly some of the causes we get to be involved in, it's amazing. There's no other words for it. So we always like those kind of projects, for sure.
What I was going to say, are there ever situations where it might impact your normal business decisions, or is it a challenge balancing that with, I guess, what pays the bills, I guess, I
mean, we have a pretty wide variety of clients. So we have clients from all industries. It's not a situation where they're the only kind of clients that we have on our books. And all kind of sizes as well, from, one person businesses to global corporate type entity. So I would say, and I think the values that we have for, let's say, social impact, which is a word that we use internally, permeate the business at a lot of different levels. The staff love the kind of work that we do there and the social impact stuff that we get involved in. So, it's obviously a bit of an incentive for them to be like supporting something of value beyond, if you strip back what we do as an agency, we're a marketing agency, right? Like, so it's hard to have a grander goal than marketing. It's nice to have that internally. And that's always resonated with me personally, to have a bit of a social impact in terms of everything that I do. And I could probably talk about some stuff there, but I think as opposed to it being kind of a force that has, in the way that you framed it, slowed us down, I think it's only sped us up. I think it's only been a valuable thing that we have that as a value in terms of social impact, in terms of how we attract clients like that, how we do things internally, how, the values that our team hold, and something that we look for in talent as well.
Yeah.
I think it's only made us stronger.
Yeah, fair play. No, and to be fair, I think even with hiring, right? So that means the people that you hire, there will be a good proportion of people that are attracted by that, which then means
definitely, like 100%.
Yeah, and then the culture starts to shift effortlessly. So yeah, no, I see it, and then forgive me, I didn't mean to frame it that way. I just wondered if it was a challenge because I can.
Well, there has been times where we've had challenges in that space for sure. Like I can remember a time where we had it was a pro bono charity client not-for-profit client, and the pro bono space is an interesting one, because I think it creates a situation where the person on the other end, because they're not paying for the work, they don't necessarily value it. And it also means that they were just trying to give us an almost unlimited amount of work. So there's kind of no limit on it. They don't really value it. They're not really engaging with it like a paid client would. And it created a lot of frustrations in terms of the process and how it was being run and everything else. So, that made us think about that model a bit too, and reflect on the best way to do it. And I think, having, a discount that goes into kind of charity and not-for-profit clients is a really strong and good way to support that space.
Yeah, fair play. So let's talk talent in Australia. So have you seen any remarkable, I should say, shifts in kind of recent years? I think every market has, but in candidate behavior, candidate expectations, skill set is expectation? And
look, I think the world, I think it's a crazy time globally in terms of where everything's at. And, you know, specific to Australia and my market, I mean, you know, if you think about pre-COVID, in COVID, post-COVID, and today in different kind of stages, it's like been crazy. It's been like, you know, there were times within COVID where talent was very, very easy to get from an employee perspective. Then it tightened right up and it was very difficult to get people. And then now we're in an economic situation where I'd say it's loosened right off again, and it's fairly easy time to find talent in the digital marketing space in Australia. So I think there's always going to be these cycles, like everything in life. Sometimes it's going to be favorable to the employee in terms of like businesses need more people, and as a result, you know, they can command a bit of a higher wage. Other times it means that, you know, the market rate is a bit less for a role or something like that. And I think that we've cycled through a few different kind of peaks and troughs pretty quickly in the last kind of, you know, what, 8 years, 7 years kind of time frame. And I think that comes with a fair bit of fatigue in market. I mean, and for business owners and for myself, right? Like it's a time that is a bit busy and a bit crazy. And I think you can feel that in the market, and you can feel that with talent. And like I can feel it in my own business as well. So I think, yeah, to answer the question of how talent is, I think in the digital marketing space, I mean, it's changed a lot through the kind of cycles that we've gone through. I think that has changed the perception with a lot of, you know, team members and potential team members around, you know, pricing and market pricing and what a workplace should be like and things like that as well. And I think as an agency owner, as a business owner, you know, we need to be adapting to the reality that's there in terms of what people want as well. So like a big thing that, you know, is an important factor at Sixgun is we're very, very flexible about being in the office and working from home and how that dynamic works. And I can't overstate how important that is when having conversations with new talent. Like it is like 50% of people are like, oh, that's amazing. That's exactly what I want. Like the flexibility is like the top thing that I'm like, you know, salary, flexibility to come into the office and work from home, big decision-making factors for talent market at the moment.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And that's what I'm seeing as well when it comes to Australia. I feel like the UK is a bit more. The UK is very big. At the moment, I think one of the major conversations I'm having in the UK is around remote working. So it's not even hybrid necessarily. A lot of people are looking for remote, even if they're in London. They're not necessarily wanting to travel to across the other side of London, which I kind of get. The cost of living has gone up dramatically, price of trains, etc. It's having a bit of an impact on kind of how agencies can scale and grow and the amount of churn they have in employees. But I think that's another episode in its own right. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that you're seeing it in Australia as well. I guess it makes sense because the other thing I was going to talk about was actually, and don't take this the wrong way because this is a positive for me. This is why I'm attracted to the Australian market. And we were talking about me moving over there, right? But the work-life balance seems pretty important over there, right? Yeah. Which I think is a good thing. And I think there's always been, particularly in London, there's always just been this thing of like, I work harder. No, I work harder. Look at me. I'm almost dying. I'm work harder. Whereas Austin seems to be like that. But how do you balance that with client demands as you're accelerating in growth?
Yeah, it's very important. Look, and we, you know, sustainability again, you know, when I first started an agency, you know, my mindset around this was much different in terms of like go, push, you know, as hard as possible, all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, I had those demands on myself when I was, you know, started out and it was just me and all the rest of it. And so it was values that I held on to at the beginning. But, you know, the older I get, sustainability becomes far more important. You know, we want team members for 10 years. And I often say that to team members and I kind of joke around. I say it jokingly, but I'm kind of half jokingly about it because that's like, we want a long-term relationship here. And a long-term relationship means a lot of love and a lot of trust and a lot of, you know, balance. You know, a lot of our strongest team members are balancing families outside of work life. You know, I'm balancing a family outside of work life. I understand what, you know, that is like. And, you know, that balance and sustainability is very important. I think it's important. It's ingrained in Australian culture, and particularly after COVID and kind of where everyone's at mentally. It's something that people want, like you mentioned, something that I want as well. So, and there's no reason why you can't create a culture with that that's high performing and delivers strongly on what clients want. And I think to kind of come out with the argument saying, oh, you have to kill yourself to get, to deliver things for clients, or you have to go like, I use the term heroic effort. Like, you shouldn't have to pull out that many heroic efforts. You know what I mean? It should be just inbuilt into the workday, in the work schedule, in what we've done, where you're building systems and processes to avoid needing a heroic effort because something's failed and now you have to like do something crazy to pull it back and stay up, and do all this stuff. Like, so, it's a very important factor, I think, globally. In Australia, I would say, work-life balance and kind of dovetailing into that flexibility, very important factors in terms of getting great talent, holding on to great talent. And I think there's no reason why an agency or business can't, engage talent that wants to do their best and do amazing work during work hours and be able to have that balance as well.
Yeah.
It's not like a one or the other. I think both can be achieved together.
Yeah. But you know what? I think, it makes complete sense. And that's what's always fascinated me about the Australian market, because people do seem to have it down so well. Like, they've got that balance there, but the economy is still, I mean, people might disagree with me, but compared to London, the economy is still kind of nice and bubbly. So I think what I'm seeing a lot in the UK is you get a lot of agency founders that will pay lip service to things like a 4-day week. Oh, we give you a 4-day week and that means you can, whereas actually what I'm hearing from their employees and people inside is actually what it means is it's just a lot more intense for those 4 days. And actually to the point where it's harder than just doing it as a 5-day. They feel less rested than if they've been made to go to work on the Friday because, and don't get me wrong, there are some agencies that have got that kind of thing right, but generally speaking, it's just, a lot of it's lip service. Some of the loudest shouting agencies on LinkedIn are often like some of the biggest churn from an employee perspective. So that's why it always fascinates me, really, because it's funny, you speak to agency founders and like it's only when you actually speak to their employees that you really and truly know what it's like. But I can see, though, from your perspective and the way that you hire and your retention rate, that clearly you've got something right. And that was what I was fascinated to know, whether sometimes there's a trade-off between the scale and the scaling of the agency and the work life. But it sounds like you got it down. Did that take time, or is that just the way you've always been?
I mean, I think, and I always say this when I'm talking to talent. I'm like, I'm the agency owner, so like I don't want to oversell it, right? So, we as a business, we have our own challenges, and I imagine there would be team members that would say their current work-life balance isn't where it should be as well. So I don't want to pretend, part of the issues that we have.
Yeah, just to say, well, that wasn't what I was getting at, by the way. I didn't mean
No,
that.
I know, but what I'm saying is, ownership is a value of Sixgun and mine. And, and we always talk about this idea of, we use the word Kaizen, which is a Japanese word for continual improvement. So we're always quick to say, you know what, like we can actually do better here and better there. And so I always try to bring that into conversations to not, I don't want to just seem as though we're glossy. So when you're like, oh, Sixgun's got something right, I'm immediately trying to bring some modesty to it, is what I'm saying. But sorry, where was I going with this?
No, I think what you were saying was fair. That you were saying that ultimately that's what you strive for.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so that's absolutely what we strive for, and I think that comes in different waves with our size as well. So we've got 15, 16 odd team members in the team. So when someone's on a holiday, we're not so big that everyone's work is easily absorbed. And that kind of dovetails into that point around work-life balance, which is an interesting one. But I think we've always, when I started the agency, I had this philosophy of, making sure the client's winning, the staff's winning, and the agency's winning. And, this idea of they can be achieved together. You don't have to, make decisions that are terrible for staff but are great for the client, or terrible for the client and great for the agency. It can be achieved together. And that's how a sustainable agency should be set up, in my opinion, where you've got, great sustainable clients, great sustainable team, and a thriving agency as a result. So, I started with that philosophy. There's always been a fair amount of, care that's gone into team experience. Like I said, not always perfect, but it is a factor that we always try to kind of improve on, or we always want to make it better. And I think just thinking through things from that perspective, and always kind of trying to balance those kind of three competing ideas to kind of find a really good place is an important one.
Fair play. Obviously, super conscious of time, so we'll wrap it up there. Final question. Do you think what skill sets are lacking in the Australian digital market right now, or certainly in shorter supply, that people are having to find solutions for?
I think Australia and Melbourne specifically, there's a massive amount of tech talent. We don't have any troubles finding great talent, I would say. If there is something that I think is a hard thing to find and train, it's going to be, like you mentioned earlier, finding people that can have business level discussions. Right. Now that's hard because, a lot of team members have never run a business themselves. So it's difficult for them to have an owner perspective. Yeah. But, that comes with time in the role, and as an account manager, understanding kind of what people want, what people want to see. That's as an account manager, for example. But, being in sales and being in tech, it's the same thing. Kind of putting yourselves in the client's shoes, understanding what they want exactly and how to get to that and how to speak their language. I think, that's a very important skill, and a very important skill for more junior talent to develop. And I think, one of the most valuable things inside an agency framework is to have people that can understand strategy beyond the technical level.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of that gap is down to the kind of the old school model where you had a client services arm or some kind of layer that was kind of the commercial mouthpiece, so to speak, within an agency, or traditional agencies anyway? So therefore, it's almost like today's middleweight people, maybe they've got 3 to 4 years of experience, weren't exposed to those commercial conversations back in the day, even though they feel they've progressed and they're very good at their craft. That's what we're seeing in the UK anyway, but it's interesting to see what.
I think there's definitely that, and I think it's also different agencies have different models around how they handle that. So at Sixgun, we have an account management team, and we have an SEO team and a performance media team. Yeah. And the techs are really responsible for that technical work. And the best techs that I know are the kind of people that don't really want to have client conversations, right? They want the headphones on and they do exceptional technical work in their bubble of work.
Yeah.
And then the best account managers that I know they're not the kind of people that can open a spreadsheet and write, intricate title tags for 100 pages and sit down for 3 hours to do that. They like conversation, and they like understanding business, and they like communication. They like the relationship. Yeah. And so at Sixgun, we separate those functions. We have an account manager and a technician. And I think that's the strongest model because it brings in the best of both. Where some agencies go the opposite way, where you've got an account manager that does some of the work. Yeah. Or they bundle it together. And that has other advantages in terms of, you could say it's maybe more efficient for the person that you're speaking with to be doing the work. But my argument to that would be, well, if they're okay at client communication and project management and they're okay at tech, are they really the best at either? Is that really, But there's good agencies that do both of those styles effectively. So I think it just depends on the business and what the customer wants from that experience as well. It plays a big role. Yeah. So I think that dovetails into, from a team member's perspective, from an employee perspective, knowing the direction that you want to go in is so important. And this comes up pretty much at the first point of, a talent conversation in relation to coming into our agency in terms of like defining what the role is and explaining to people, hey, as an account manager here, there's no technical requirement. And they're like, oh, I did half my role was actually doing the tech work at my existing one. I'm like, I know, that's why I brought it up, because I thought just want to make sure it'd be a good fit. And like, is that something, do you want to grow into that side, or, does it scare you to be doing that? Do you want to hang on to the tech, all of that? So knowing what you want as knowing where to grow your skill set is important. Is it going to be relationship building, project management, account management, let's say in an agency, or it could be sales and, strategy, or is it going to be tech and kind of that delivery arm of things? And all of those they're all can be great options, right? Just depends on skill set and interests of talent, and understanding the models that exist, let's say in Australia, of how many agencies separate, how many agencies bundle, what they expect from a marketing person, and kind of doing some self-reflection and picking a path, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. It makes sense. And like I said, it's another one of those things. Nobody's got it 100% one way or another. I think people go either way, and there are merits to both, as you say. I think it's very, very tough, as we just said, to find somebody that's a techie, but also able to sit there and talk shop. They do exist, but they're usually consultants, to be honest with you. They usually go off and earn fortunes as day rate on day rates. So yeah, I get you.
Normally people that are great at both start their own business, right? That's kind of how it is. Like if you can talk to clients super well and you got that part of it covered off and you're very organized, you can do the project management and you're a great tech, like you're great at the craft, that's the perfect combination of someone to step out and do their own thing. And that's, what I've seen in my life in terms of people starting their own businesses, and you would have seen the same amongst kind of friends and colleagues and the rest of it, and yourself, starting a business has a lot of its own challenges as well, which I'm sure will be episode V2 of this very chat.
Well, on that note, mate, just conscious of time, but thank you so much for, I know that it's the end of your day, you're in Australia, and so thank you for accommodating. But yeah, cheers for being on episode 4 of Roll Talk, and we'll catch up this week anyway. But yeah.
James, thanks so much for having me on. It's always such a pleasure to catch up and hear some of your thoughts on bits and pieces, kind of where the market's at as well. So
yeah, likewise. Like I say, we'll continue these conversations this week anyway. But yeah, we'll catch up with you soon.
Awesome.